Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I am your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Peter Holyoke, Robert Como. Our Canal Days series delves deep into the vast collection of historical sites to promote Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover histories throughout local communities with historic houses, meaningful monuments, preeminent pivotal pioneers, and remarkable remaining remnants, all while uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be discussing the Industrial Revolution in Massachusetts. So, clarify why the Industrial Revolution was so significant in Massachusetts.
It is a wonderful question, and you have to really go back to the American Revolution, and that's the next question, and that really ties it in tightly together. And why Massachusetts compared to any other place in North America? And what else happened because of this? These are all good questions. So, the Industrial Revolution mostly happened in Massachusetts because business owners had the right attitude and the right spirit to go off on their own, strike out there, and do a better job than anyone had ever done before. A lot of them knew what happened in Great Britain in the 1700s, where the British Industrial Revolution had really pushed that country to new heights. But America would bring it even higher. And a revolution is not just an increase in economic force, it's a massive development in all fields to make the economy go to spectacular heights. So you're not talking about 1 or 2 or 3% growth, you're talking about 25 to 30% growth every year. It just takes off. Right? And that happened right away after the American Revolution. The first power canal made was actually in Rhode Island's northern border in the Blackstone Valley, but it was taken up with great force by other communities around the area. And the first canal that brought water inland and put the water behind the mill so it could power turbines inside the mill and usually in the basement, that came in 1822. And it came about, as far as I know, in two places, and that was in Ludlow and that was in Lowell. And so you had this great growth. And it can happen in community after community. So Covington, Massachusetts, a tiny place they don't expect much from, has 12 power canals inside it. Well, they don't anymore, but they had 12. It's hard to believe. Northampton, Massachusetts, which was the capital city of Western Massachusetts, you expect only commerce and retail. No, they had 12 power canals also in that location. In places that you don't expect to have mills, these power mills. Granby had 2 power canals. And hardly anyone knows these facts. And community upon community, you have these things develop. And also at the same time, you had a transformation in navigation. You had navigational canals being developed on the Connecticut River and the Merrimack River. The first 3 navigational canals within the United States were on those 2 rivers in Massachusetts. And so it happened because of freedom.
And define the relation between the American Revolution and the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, so if you had the spirit to go up against King George III, you probably do also have the spirit to go out there and say, I can do better in all fields. And so not only was there American Revolution in terms of fighting the British for freedom for that country, get your own country, but that same nasty spirit that started in Massachusetts by the Minutemen and then the rest of the Massachusetts militias fighting against King George, that spirit was so strong and they finally succeeded kicking the British Army out of Boston. 14 months after Lexington Concord, the Declaration of Independence comes around. Because Massachusetts had that fighting spirit, and the other colonies said, oh, they can succeed. Where in the beginning they said, oh, we better be careful. Because once you sign a Declaration of Independence, that's your death warrant also, if you don't succeed. But that same spirit of going out there and fighting against those who dominate you can happen to the industrial field also, and it did. So the same kind of spirit, and mostly the same people, they went out there and opened up their own mills and did better, and kept improving them. Not only in the structure of the mills and the power, but also in the dynamic society, and also in the mechanics of making the items. So they wouldn't say, oh, let's keep making it this way. They would say, we can do this, we can do that. And so new items were being made in new ways. They were being made very quickly, especially in the fiber fields, where they had these incredibly quick warp and weft machines. And in other fields, they were developing mechanization. And this would spread into other fields, and then beyond Massachusetts, it would hit agricultural and fields and so forth. But for the 1800s, mostly, it had its most powerful force in Massachusetts for the same reason that the Revolutionary War was won.
And stick around, we'll be right back after a quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Coulomb. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families and groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit HolyokeCanalTour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. Getting back to our podcast, recount some of the other revolutions that happened in Massachusetts.
Okay, so we know there was a revolution in terms of military and industrial revolution. Also, there was a revolution in the form of government, because there had been no democracies upon the surface of the earth for 2,000 years. And so when the Revolutionary War ended, the intelligent people of these societies looked at what was needed, and they worked hard at coming up with a system where democratic forces would control the new republic. And it worked because they looked at the values of John Locke. So it was also a democratic revolution for the third thing. But the revolutions did not stop there. They also continued into the religious field. Before the revolution, they would have stressed that we should continue with the values of the British religions. Even though they had fled to get their religious freedom, a lot of them didn't change drastically from the way religion was done beyond that. And yet, the philosophy changed drastically after the American Revolution. Before, the religious philosophy that was most current was, you were in the hands of an angry God, in the words of one angry minister. After the revolution, that attitude went away, and religion started to soften, where God was a personal God, one that would be nice to you, would intervene in your favor, especially through Mary. And So it was a different kind of religion softened up, and it showed in many, many ways. And then also by the 1820s, it showed up in the plurality of religions that started being branched out.
And describe ways that the revolutions lived on.
Okay, so can you keep revolutions going forever? Of course you cannot. And that's fine because at some point you want to settle in. And remember I told you before, a true revolution is not just a small change or a slight increase. So a revolution is a big difference. So to revolt against the British was a big revolution because this was a fight against the British king, which no one had done successfully ever. And they were the most powerful country in the world. Also, to revolt against religion is always very tough. And that continued onwards, but it started to settle in. Also, economic revolutions are tough, except when they hit certain subfields. So, you cannot continue big economic revolutions for centuries, but in certain subfields, you can really develop very, very quickly. For instance, the computer revolution, right? That continues onwards, and that started up and went onwards. Also, steel revolution that happened in the 1890s, right? And power revolutions, and so forth and so on. There could be subfields that develop quickly. Those are revolutions. But if it's just small increases, fine, that's good too. It shows that at least when percentage increases, the business of all the people in that country is doing something in the right direction. But revolutions do not go on forever.
And thanks for listening to our Canal Days series and our podcast on the Industrial Revolution in Massachusetts. And joining us on our journey to the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to keep exploring and discovering history that is hidden in plain sight all around us. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in to our next episode of Canal Days and log on to holyokecanaltour.org. Until next time.